today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about
most men, when confronted with conflict, either shut down or explode. We're going to show you another way. You don't got to win. You can navigate it with clarity, courage, and calm without losing your self-respect or your connection. And most important, something new. A synergy can come out of differences when they're managed well. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller, and today we're talking about navigating conflict without collapse. Can you imagine that? The destroyer of marriages is movement away from intimacy. And that movement away from intimacy, from closeness, from feeling comfortable with one another, is driven by either diving into conflict in a way that's destructive conflict, or avoiding it altogether because you feel that conflict is what? Destructive. There is another way. Every argument seems to end in shutdown, blow-ups, or walking away. You're either the villain or the doormat, and neither feels good, but you don't have to avoid conflict. Let's really say you don't really have to avoid differences, all right? This word conflict brings up in guys, I gotta win. You don't gotta win. You can navigate it with clarity, courage, and calm without losing your self-respect or your connection. And most important, something new. A synergy can come out of differences when they're managed well. That's what we're going to teach you today. And we've been working up to this over several episodes. So like if I go over this and it sounds like Chinese to you, you need to go back and listen to some of the earlier episodes, because a lot of the foundation for this process we've built up to over a few weeks now. So let's talk about why conflict. Let's throw out this word conflict. Either that or let's reframe it. There's creative conflict and there's destructive conflict. So let's talk about why destructive conflict is what seems to come up for us. Destructive conflict basically means that whenever there's difference, oh my God, it's Armageddon again, right? Because really, if it were Armageddon, that'd be the end. If conflict or differences feel like combat, it's because of the way your brain is wired. Anytime that we experience threat, we are wired to protect, fight, run away, or play dead. If we run away, it's usually so we can fight later. If we play dead, it's so that when they turn their back, we can get them. When that part of our brain is activated, there's no connection happening. And this is particularly true for guys. When we look at one of the outcomes of having a male-dominated society for all this time is that a lot of the systems and the way that we do things is actually geared around a male perspective of I need to get to the goal. Anything that I get in my way, I need to move through. That's a very male perspective. Move through as in run over, blow up, destroy, or go around. Right? But the female way of going through is completely different. Because as men, we've got this train on tracks mindset going on. There's a place that we're going and I'm going to destroy anything that gets in my way. Because our natural wiring when it comes to family is to serve, right? To care for, to provide for, and to protect. When difference comes up with our partner, sometimes it can feel like a threat to the family, especially if we disagree with them. And our amygdala or our limbic system gets hijacked. It's called an amygdala hijacked in some circles. This is anytime that we see danger, we react to danger with fight, flight, or play dead. And I'm going to tell you, the amygdala is an important thing. If somebody actually broke into the house, your amygdala would keep you from wondering, how shall they handle this? Well, let's see, they're downstairs and da-da-da-da-da. Your amygdala is going to direct you to go get the phone, call the police, grab a stick, go confront them, tell your wife to go to the safe room while you confront them, whatever your amygdala tells you to do. Your amygdala is a vital and necessary part of your survival mechanism, of that protect urge. But when it comes up, in contrast to your partner, it's no longer working for you, it is working against you. Because even if your partner disagrees with you, she's still your partner. She may not feel like your partner in that moment, but she is. And what we've been taught to do by our parents and by our culture up to maybe 10 or 15 years ago anyway, is that we need to escalate it. There are a lot of cultures where husband and wives fighting loudly is the norm. But what we're finding is that going to that place emotionally isn't good for real closeness. In some cultures, a husband and wife might fight loudly, then afterwards they have makeup sex and they move forward and they might maintain that pattern for decades. But true intimacy isn't going to occur in that space because for women in particular, there's a lack of safety in that kind of interaction. It's not good for men either, though. I want to be really clear. That kind of interaction either escalates or it shuts down, but it doesn't create safety, all right? Connection happens in safety. Here's kind of the laws of intimacy. First, there needs to be caring communication. Caring communication, not loud, communication. That's not caring. That's reactive communication. First, there needs to be caring communication, which means calm. It doesn't mean unemotional. A lot of guys I work with feel like if I just don't show an emotion, it'll be okay. But honestly, being unemotional, being shut off is in some ways scarier for your wife than being angry because they really don't know what's going on. Caring communication is just like what it says. It isn't just calm, it's caring. The root of the communication is that you care about your partner. You care about the well-being of your family. You care about them so much that just like you would go downstairs to confront that invader, you are willing to be vulnerable and possibly get hurt in your discussion, in your creative resolution of difference with your wife. You're willing to take that risk. Conflict, difference, it's not a sign that something's wrong. It's actually healthy, right? When you think about it, you didn't pick your partner because they're just like you and agree with you on everything. You picked them because they've got strengths in areas that you don't, and they picked you because you got strengths in areas they don't. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap, right? The studies show that we tend to marry people who are more like us than different from us. But the studies also show that we tend to marry people who have strengths where we don't and vice versa because we want to learn and grow from each other. Or we recognize that having both of these strengths in our children is going to be better for them. Or we recognize that in a partnership, having someone who's good at big picture and somebody who's good at details is a win-win combination. The challenge, of course, is when one person's detail-oriented and the other person's big picture, there's going to be conflict. The big picture person is going to say, hey, I can see that we need this thing. And the detail person is going to say, moving towards that thing is too disturbing to everything right now. I've just gotten everything all lined up. I can't reset it. And there's going to be a conflict in those two things. The big picture distance thinker and the detail-oriented maintain the security now thinker are always going to have conflict at some point. Oh yeah, there are going to be times of harmony. The conflict isn't bad. It's good. Because the truth is, the big picture thinker who has the goal in mind has the goal in mind that they agreed on in advance. And if the big picture thinker were working towards the goal, that person probably wouldn't consider all the details as thoroughly as the detail person will. So when you can bring these two sides together and have them work together in harmony, there's a synergy that happens. Something magical happens. And that's what we get married for. We get married for that synergy. We get married for the magic, right? Isn't that what it's all about? I'm just not talking about good sex. That's not bad either. I'm talking about those amazing vacations. I'm talking about when you make it work through, a child has a challenge and you lean in together and help that child to work through that challenge, and you see that child is now stronger for it. And you go, oh, wow. When we work together, magic happens. When we work together, our family succeeds. Let's go back to Brad and Gwen. In a previous episode, Brad and Gwen were having a fight about finances. Gwen, you may recall, if you listened to the previous episode, wanted Gwen wanted Brad to pony up enough money to take the kids and Gwen's parents to Disneyland, and Brad, there just wasn't enough money there. And Brad got really upset and Gwen got really upset. And in the end, they went to Disneyland and Brad felt like he cut off a testicle. That was the original story. But before that happened, there were all kinds of fights. And by the way, this is a for real story I'm telling you. There were shutdowns. It was tragic. But what if they had been more careful with each other? What if they had been communicating more regularly about the big picture and the vacation? What if they planned it further in advance? Or what if, when the confrontation came up, they'd said, hey, let's put this off a few months and we'll put money towards it. And, we're going to eat rice and beans for a couple of months to get there. There are so many ways they could have worked it out creatively and synergistically. So there are guidelines I'm going to give you that are going to help you to have the kind of outcome Brad and Gwen might have had. The first guideline, number one, is that we need, men in particular need to understand, but this is good for women also, but men in particular need to understand that real strength is not who's the loudest. Real strength is not who's the biggest. Real strength is not who's right. Okay, real strength is keeping your eyes on the prize. And the prize is that you have a shared goal and that you allow each of you to articulate your unique means of moving towards that goal and that you articulate your principles, the guiding principles underneath those means. It's about staying grounded. Now, what that looks like is the highest value when you're having a creative disagreement or a creative conflict. The highest value always needs to be our relationship is primary. Now, this assumes that you're taking care of yourself and they're taking care of themselves, right? As individuals, you've taken care of yourselves spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. So when you come into a creative, synergistic disagreement / conflict, the next highest value is the health and well-being of our relationship is primary, right? I've taken care of myself. You've taken care of yourself. We need to nurture this baby that we have, this child. Our first child is our relationship with one another. And the nature of the relationship that we wanted when we married was one that was intimate and strong and supportive and caring and loving and generative and moving us towards the outcome in the future that we dream of for our children, for our parents, for ourselves, for everyone involved. That's got to stay on top. Well, the mistake we make is when our amygdala gets fired up, we forget about the relationship and we think, I'm going to win this battle, right? You need to get, it's not about the battle. The battle is a road to creating, building that relationship. And if you slip into yelling or screaming or name calling or sarcasm or being sardonic, you're losing the battle. You need to stay focused on the prize, which is honest, authentic, vulnerable communication with one another. That's number one. You might want to make some rules about that. A lot of time when I work with couples in parent coordination, we start out with rules to make the room safe. It could be on the negative side, no name calling, no interrupting, no storming out without a plan to reconnect. But on the positive side, it's going to be like, let's show one another mutual respect. And that mutual respect means I'm not going to call you a name because I respect you. I'm going to call you a name. It's going to be, you're so, a wise one, caring one, and authentically saying it. If I respect you, I'm not going to interrupt you. And maybe another rule might be, we're always going to be caring and respectful. If you're caring, you don't storm out without a plan to reconnect. And maybe but the primary rule is our relationship comes first. This difference is a way to make our relationship stronger. In order to keep those ground rules, you're going to need to know your triggers. Triggers are like old emotions, stuff we learned from our parents, old hurts, unresolved traumas that we have from our childhood. You're going to need to know what those are. Basically, those are the things where somebody says, I'd like to talk to you about spending more time together. And you go, what? Are you saying I'm not spending enough time with you? Right? That's a trigger when you go, all of a sudden go to the negative instead of going, oh, you want to spend more time with you? That's so sweet. And the way you're going to know these triggers is, are you going from 0 to 60 instead of 0 to 10? We're going to talk in car terms. 0 to 60 would be are you a Ferrari or are you a 4-cylinder engine of any make? 4-cylinder engines almost never go from 0 to 60 to my knowledge. And you'll know that by, is your chest clenching or your stomach clenching or your jaw clenching or are your arms crossed? Do you suddenly feel at risk? And what you might need to do is say, hey, my button's been pushed a little here. I need to reset. Let's come back to this in an hour, a week, right? Or maybe it isn't anger. Maybe you're really in touch with some other feelings, some sadness, some hurt, some feeling isolated and alone. Whatever the intense feeling is that's coming up when you're having a discussion about difference, notice that it probably is more than the situation calls for, especially if you're thinking you always or never. And you want to do this without feeling like you're backing down or losing, because usually when we're triggered, that's our amygdala's kicked in and it's I'm going to win, you're going to lose, or it's I feel like losing. I feel like I'm losing already and I just can't play anymore. Any of those feelings, by the way, so those are okay feelings. They're just not helpful to creating a caring conversation. I'm going to win, you're going to lose, not so caring. I already lost, really feeling uncared for. Not a great space to be in. You can have those feelings though, and you want to know where they come from. And I want you to know I've done a ton of work with individuals and couples to help them get to the root of some of that stuff so that they're not going from 0 to 60. Got some great techniques here. We actually give people a money-back guarantee on these techniques. These rewiring your trigger techniques, they're like 100% effective. Never had anyone come back for money. Sometimes we've done some rework, right, to make sure we get it all, but we're very thorough and very complete. The point being that you either need to work around these triggers or you need to release them because they're going to get in the way of that synergy, that magic that you signed up for. What you want to do is you want to validate your partner's feelings without necessarily making them right or making them wrong. And you want your feelings to be validated without you being made right or wrong, right? And when everyone's feelings are validated, you're moving in the right direction. When you understand the principle behind why they're asking for what they're asking for, 9 times out of 10, I would say 99 times out of 100, you're going to say, I have that principle too. The only difference is that I have this other principle that's come up higher for me right now. Let's figure out how we can balance these principles out so that it's a win-win, right? Because that's what you signed up for. You signed up for a win-win. Focus on what you're for, not so much what you're against. You want to, if you hear yourself thinking, that's wrong, or saying you're wrong, then you know you're in an amygdala triggered state. If you find yourself saying things like, wow, I see what you're saying. I've got kind of a different take on it. Can I share that with you? You're probably in a very good space. If you do go off the rails, and I'm going to tell you, everybody does. Rich does too, right? We're human beings. I'm talking about the emotional rails here. Don't let it last, all right? There's a saying, don't go to bed angry. Well, it might be better to go to bed angry than to fight all night. But if you do go to bed angry, the next morning you want to clean it up. You don't want to go through another 24 hours. And if you do go to bed angry, it might see something like this. You know what, honey? I just can't seem to get into a space where I can see this right. I'm too tired. I'm exhausted. I had a long day. Could we get up early tomorrow and have coffee together? Maybe in the light of the morning, we'll have a different perspective. Even making that kind of agreement is a way to de-escalate and move towards a healthier outcome. If being right and winning is what's on top, you know you're in a bad space. You probably want to circle back You probably want to say something like, hey, you know what? I didn't handle that the way I wanted to. Let's start over. If you're really emotionally upset, you're going to need to process that upset before you go there. And we've done a lot of episodes on this, but a quick recap. You will want to get it out of your body first. There's a whole chemical reaction that comes with an amygdala hijack of adrenaline and stuff like that needs to be worked out of your body. You might want to go for a walk. While you're walking, you might want to call a bud or a friend or a spiritual guide or text your coach or whatever you have going on. You probably want to do some prayer and meditation that'll help take you out of your amygdala. That prayer and meditation take you into your cerebral cortex. And once you've reset, maybe then you're ready to sit down. As men, our job is to model emotional leadership. As men, our job is to create a space where the feminine principle of exploring emotion is safe for both the man and the woman. It's a feminine principle. It's not uniquely feminine. All right? I want you to get that this lives in men and women. What Brad did when he had the big fight with Gwen is he circled back the next morning and he said, I got defensive. I'm working on that. I value your input. I want us to feel like a team. And yeah, he gave in that instance because he realized that he had really misstepped with her. And he worked it out with her after the vacation so that he didn't feel like he'd given up a testicle, to be honest. And sometimes that's the way this plays out. Sometimes it's just the real win is to give in and then to recoup the thing that you were concerned about later on. Brad was concerned about money for his kids' college, and they came back from this very successful vacation with Gwen's parents and their kids. And Brad said, listen, Gwen, I was serious when I said we were spending money that I was putting away for our kids' college. Could you help me, please? We had a great vacation together. I so enjoyed it. I love spending the time with your parents and the kids, and I really need your help. And guess what? She got right on board with him. So the challenge for the week is I want you to choose one recurring conflict that you're having with your wife. I'm sure there's something. It's usually about money. 76% of all marriages fight about money. If it's not that, that's okay. I want you to think about that conflict, and I want you to journal your triggers. Write them down. Or go to your AI buddy or whatever and explore where are you going from 0 to 60 and why is that? What's your default reaction? And then I want you to create a strategy for working around that. This is the equivalent of you're falling into the same hole with your wife over and over. So this time when you walk down the street, you're going to remember that the hole is there and you're going to go around the hole next time. So create that strategy, meditate on it, or if you're a praying man, pray about it. You might even want to talk to your wife about it. You might even want to declare it to her, honey, I fall in the emotional hole. Whenever we talk about this is what I'm going to do in the future, and I could use your help. She will be encouraged by that. And you might even have a script that you create. And I want you to practice it with her. Pretend that you're falling in the hole with her. Maybe if it's a money fight, it's like she's your Gwen. You're going to say, Gwen, I'm about to fall into that money hole. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the bathroom and say a couple of prayers, and I'm going to reset myself. And then when I come back, I will want to understand what it is let's stop talking about what we're going to spend the money on. Let's talk about what is it that you want to accomplish. Let's just have that conversation first, and then we can get to the money conversation. And if I start to fall in that hole again, I'm going to go to the bathroom and reset myself, and we'll just talk about the principles. Let's really understand what's important to us, why the thing we want or don't want is so important to us. What's the principle? What's the value? What's the vision? What's the hope? And then let's see if we can find a way to combine those principles, values, visions, and hopes in a way that's a little different than what you want, or a little different than I want. How does that sound to you? That's a lot. I want to know how you do with this exercise. So if you would please hit me up on Facebook, maybe join our Men, Masculinity, and Marriage group and put it in there on Facebook. I'd love to hear how you do with this exercise. And in the meantime, have a wonderful day and an amazing tomorrow.